Tonight, the debate on the Newshour focuses on American, I'm not saying complicity, but America looking the other way. I know, Ray, I said I'll come back to you, but let's hear from K.C. Singh, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. Why did the Americans know and do nothing, K.C., in your view?
Thank you, Arnab. I would have gone to sleep waiting.
Sorry.
Except the noise level was quite high. I really don't know what we are talking about. If the intention is to impale the Americans, I think they do a fairly good job themselves. If the intention is to look forward, as Mr. Vikri said,
no, why do you say impale the Americans?
The question is that Americans have done enough to themselves to discuss, and to Obama, when he was fighting the election, he did have enough criticism of Bush. He called Afghanistan a war of choice. He called Iraq a war of choice, and Afghanistan a war of compulsion. So he knew there are two different wars, that they had made a mistake. So it serves no purpose to go on repeating the past. I've come in after a long time. Let me finish my argument.
I just want to add one thing.
I've heard everything.
Casey, just one small counter to it. I just want to get this out of you.
You add it, then I can't make my argument. I've listened for 30 minutes. You must allow me to make my argument.
Just a short point.
If it doesn't fit into your scheme of things, then don't invite me.
No, Casey, don't get upset. Don't you feel the Americans have a propensity to repeat the mistakes over and over again?
Listen to a counter thesis. You must listen to a counter thesis. You cannot have one thesis. Things can't be black and white.
No, it's all. Don't get touchy about the Americans. Please go ahead. Support them as much as you wish.
No, I'm not touchy about the Americans. I'm touchy about untruth being pandered simply to emote.
So what is
because
the
that is not the truth. The Americans left in Untruth is the Americans left Iraq in a relatively stable condition in 2011.
Yes, okay. Really?
They handed it to Maliki, who screwed up. Now just listen to me. After that, what are the mistakes that were made? The mistakes were that there was something called Arab Spring. Arab Spring came and upset the equation in Syria. The problem that you are seeing today is they managed to kill Zarqawi, they managed to kill the Al-Qaeda in Iraq. But what has happened is it shifted. What the Prime Minister of Iraq allowed was Iranian interference and the Gulf interference. The American mistake is that they were sat on the sidelines, allowed the Gulf monarchies and Iran to fight each other in Syria.
No, Casey,
the problem is not what happened in Iraq.
Just a simple counter question.
The problem is what happened in Syria.
Can I ask you something? Just explain one thing, and just explain one thing.
No.
Tell me, no, one second. Just explain one thing. Why is it, I don't understand, common sense, I don't understand. Why was it so important for America to go after Saddam, but not important to go after Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi? Just explain the logic of it.
Listen,
yes.
I'll explain it to you.
Yes.
Going after Saddam as a mistake is well documented.
No. I'm asking, you can't have one approach towards one and one towards another. I don't understand.
They made I'll tell you. No, I'm saying that they concede they made a mistake.
They don't.
They made a mistake.
No, 1 second.
In going after Saddam Hussein. So what do? We keep repeating it.
I'm 1 second.
We can keep repeating it.
Casey, 1 second.
Or do we learn? Where do we go from there?
Casey, 1 second, please. Just understand one thing, Casey. You see, let's go today, let's go with a few facts and ask ourselves a few basic questions, right?
I'm giving you the facts.
No, 1 second. The fact is the second question. Second question is
Iraq was stable when it was handed over.
Casey.
The Sunni middle had joined in. They put the pieces together. Kurdistan had got semi-autonomy. The country was as together as you can make it.
No, 1 second.
Yeah.
So you are saying
you're not
Americans... I understand what you're saying. Americans have done a terrific job. Fine. Suppose I take your argument, Americans have done a terrific job.
I didn't say terrific. I did not say terrific.
Well, you said they have done a very good job.
I said they left it as...
So yes...
No, I said they left it as functional. It was not a destabilized Iraq. They held an election. They had a government elected. Shia, Sunni and Kurd...
Casey, I tell you one thing. Just one second.
Shia, Sunni and Kurd were working together.
Casey, listen. Casey, please remember one thing, If I don't praise the Americans and I don't agree with your view, doesn't mean we're trying to impale them either. However, my question to you is very simple. If you hear it, please tell me, Mr. K.C. Singh, since you feel they've done a terrific job, There is concrete information.
I never use that word. That's your word.
No,
that is your word. Don't put it in my mouth.
There is concrete information.
No. But
there is concrete information.
They left. Listen, they left.
No, one second, Casey.
Listen, there is.
You see, just hear this, Casey. Hear this, Casey. It's all right.
2011.
No, Casey, just hear this, please. You just hear me for a minute.
I'm saying that.
They
had elections, for God's sake.
Casey, please remember one thing.
They had elections.
There was information
and Kurd voted.
Remember this, Casey. There was concrete information.
Will you please answer this? In Saddam's land, they had elections with 3 ethnic groups taking part in a government.
I'll tell you one thing, Casey. You have a lot of faith in America's... one second. You have a lot of faith.
I am not saying that.
Which I find touching in America's ability to conduct elections in other countries. I don't have that faith, Casey. I think America has no business trying to conduct elections in other countries. You may think they do a great job. I think they don't. Maruf wants to counter you. Maruf.
No, we've gone off the subject.
No, we haven't. We're right on the subject. America knew what ISIS was doing. America did nothing.
You're not letting...
No, America knew what ISIS was doing. The intelligence information was there. They did nothing.
What did I say? What am I telling you? I said, that's precisely what I said. What we need to point out is that Obama's... No, you're not letting me finish my argument here. That Obama sat on the sidelines when the war started in Syria. It is not Iraq here.
Well, you don't need to go back that long.
Then the Gulf kingdoms and Iran conduct a proxy war there.
Casey,
that is where Obama's mistake is.
You just need to ask.
The mistake is not in Iraq. That is what I'm pointing out to you.
One second. Casey, please, let's be reasonable. Let's hear another point of view. Even the Kurdish intelligence says we gave all the information to the Americans. We gave it to their military planners. It fell on deaf ears, and you know this, Casey, unless you want to now be like not be realistic. That the Americans act when they want to act. The Americans don't act when they don't need to act in their own interest. They don't pretend to be in the world's interest in the first place. Now, Maruf wants to counter you. Maruf.
Yeah. Let him come.
Mr. Casey Singh, sir.
I want to come in.
One, that you say that the Americans have no role in Iraq. They put Maliki out there. They've allowed Maliki to purge the army of professional leadership.
Where did I say
They've allowed Maliki to create a culture of psychophancy. Sir, please hear me out. They've allowed him to create a culture of psychophancy. They've allowed him to do away with any worthwhile Shia opposition to him in the political system. And then you say that the Americans have had no role. Maliki is as much their crony as Karzai was in Afghanistan. And so why is it that America considers it important? Please hear, sir. Why is it America considers it important to have an election in Iraq and not in Saudi Arabia, not in Kuwait, where they went in the first place into Iraq to have democracy in Kuwait? Why not elections elsewhere in the Arab world which pay the bills for America, which buy cheap weapon systems from America, which sell oil to America? All that is because America did not want a counter to the monarchies. And now Obama saying that he doesn't want to put his feet on the ground in Iraq is emboldening the ISIS, which America's allies in the European Union funded, other than countries that you have only mentioned, such as Qatar and Kuwait. So basically, America has had a role to play in the current situation in Iraq. Yes, it's a consequence of not having imposed the red lines in Syria, which Obama promised.
Opening the debate up to also not excluding our guest from Islamabad, Syed Tariq Pirzada. Syed Tariq Pirzada, before that, please.
For the Arab world.
Syed Tariq Pirzada.
I can't hear a thing because there are so many people talking at the same time.
Go ahead, sir. You've heard the debate.
I don't know what to say. You have to put a question to me.
My question is very simple. You look at all the statements. You look at Mike Morrell. You look at the House Intelligence Committee in the US, Mike Rogers, his comment. You look at all the comments in the media and you realize only one thing, that there were repeated warnings to the Americans about this group that is going to create trouble. They did nothing. Today, my question to you, Mr. Pirzada, even though you like the Americans very often and you are on their side tonight, would you say America has nothing to contribute to the situation in Iraq and that the people should be left to defend themselves?
Well, you know, the character of American foreign policy, that is a history of shame, that is a history of indifference and it's a heartless foreign policy. It has no moral ground. You know, there was no terrorism in Iraq when Saddam was there. You may not like him. They dismantled the Iraqi army. They conquered that country, divided that country into a Shiite, Sunni, and of course a Kurdish Iraq. The division is complete. Number one. Same happened in Afghanistan. There was no role of Afghanistan in 9/11. There were 16 Saudis and 3 Egyptians. No action was taken against those 2 countries. So that shows where America stands. Look at the role and the character of America in Ukraine. In Ukraine, under the Budapest Agreement, they were bound to support, they were bound to guarantee support for the this government in Ukraine in times of trouble. But they have betrayed Ukraine, and they took all the weapons, nuclear and conventions, away from them. And here we are watching the Americans say that, look, the military option is off the table, but we'll do something, we'll take some economic sanctions. So basically, America has no moral ground. It's a shameless foreign policy.
I want Ray Locker to respond. Power, Tariq Pirzada from Washington, please, Ray Locker. So Ray Locker is responding to you.
Just a second.
Please hear him. We have a few minutes on the debate. I want a response from the Americans, please.
Let me just say one thing about Pakistan. The Indian bureaucrats have no morality at all. They are typical, dishonest, and cowardly people.
All right, you can have your go at Indian bureaucrats later, but let's hear it from the Americans, please. Thank you very much. The fact is the ISIS has abducted Indians, and we know Indians are being targeted. And please understand, sir, please listen to the American point of view. They're responding to you now.
I can't understand why
Americans have a point of view.
Mr. Pirzada is obsessed with India. We are talking of Iraq.
Listen.
They are on 2 sides of the world, Mr. Pirzada. Don't bring India into it.
Americans have a point of view which is one of aggression, one of total.
I think it's opportunism is the better word.
Destroying them.
Let's hear from Ray Locker responding to you, Mr. Pirzada. Yes, Mr. Locker.
Okay.
Come in.
Mr. Locker, please, first. After that, Brigadier.
All right. Everybody's complaining about the United States aggression, yet at the same time we want the United States to do something about ISIS in Iraq. Which way do you want it? Do you want us to be aggressive or not aggressive? The fact is, what's going to happen is we're going to go there, we're going to take out the ISIS, and we're going to try to prod them to do something differently.
We want you to take responsibility if you are taking responsibility, and if you're not, we don't want you to claim that you came in to take responsibility. GD Bakshi responding to you. GD Bakshi is responding to Ray Locker.
We're going to take responsibility, and India is going to help us, and that's the way it's going to be.
Pakistani friend, that the biggest lackeys of the Americans, in this part
Mr.
of the
Bakshi,
globe have
India
been
is the biggest lackey
they have been
of Americans in subcontinent and around the world. You guys have no character either.
Don't go off track.
You bowed before the United States. You bowed before the United States on the issue of nuclear issue. You bowed before the United States on the issue of education. Look what you were discussing earlier today. Come on,
my question is, no, 1 second, please, gentlemen. My question is today, I want to go to G. Patsati. Mr. Patsati, KC Singh makes a point, let's look ahead. My point is, let's look ahead, but how can you ignore the fact that the American government was warned by American intelligence agencies about how the Maliki government in Iraq was alienating a certain community, what was happening? The Americans waited on it. They were told about the intelligence inputs. They waited on it. Is that not something that needs to be looked at, Mr. Patsati, in the present context?
I want to come in or not.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Let Mr. Patsati
Let the brigadier come in,
mistakes.
No. If the brigadier wants to, I have no problem.
No, go ahead, Mr.
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, Brigadier, go ahead. He's let you go.
Look, why are you discussing history? What is done. You need to move towards the future. What should be done? Now, if you know, there are dozens of Shiite militias, fully armed, partially trained, ready to take on the ISIS. Now, what the Americans can do, obviously, don't expect them to send boots on the ground. They will not do that. They have these observers, These observers should provide the required leadership, which the Iraqi defense forces are lacking. But what should be done now to finish off the ISIS is to provide air support to these dozens of militias and the remnants of the Iraqi army to turn the situation around.
No, one sec.
It can be done.
Is that, Mr. Parsati?
It is not a global threat.
Mr. Parsati,
and
is that...
India is not on the radar.
1 second, Mr. Parsati.
It is not a global threat. India is not threatened.
Well,
Pakistan was.
You know what makes
and ISIS. Let me finish.
What makes the ISIS a global threat is the fact that it has recruited a number of foreigners, including Pakistanis.
You are a moderator. Forget about foreigners now.
The brigadier has been
Forget about foreigners.
Why do we need brigadier from Pakistan to give us advice on ISIS?
No, 1 second.
What does he know about ISIS?
1 second. Mr. KCC.
Come on, he can't speak for 30 minutes out of 60. 30 out of 60 he is talking. He doesn't
talk of the future. What needs to be done?
We can't ever
forget about history.
Argument.
Forget about apportioning blame and responsibility.
Yeah. And biggest lackeys of the Americans have the courage to stand up and abuse them. I mean, this is the most shocking and ironical. You live off their bits, and you have the courage when you retire to stand up in public and abuse them. At least we can do that because we don't live on their bits.
Okay. Point is taken, gentlemen. That's not the debate tonight.
My question is
we are
rubbish.
concerned. 1 second, Brigadier. Both of you, Casey's made his point of view. He has a right to disagree with you, so with him. My point, which I was actually asking Mr. Parsati, is now what? We are on the verge now. Every day, Mr. Parsati, we hear of this ISIS gaining ground. Please tell me, Mr. Parsati, now what? Are we supposed to watch and let this continue till whatever logical conclusion it will, and hope it's not going to affect us?
I'm afraid we are having
let Mr. Parsati speak. Yeah. No, Mr. Parsati, please.
I gave you all the time.
Mr. Parsati, please. I want to hear his view.
Okay, I think
please.
One must
Stop using this word. Go ahead.
I think one must understand the present situation in Iraq. When the Iraqi army was disbanded, a large number of the Saddam soldiers joined the various Sunni militias in the Anbar province and elsewhere. When the crisis in Syria broke, a large number of them went across into Syria, across the border, which is populated largely by Sunnis. And they have support there.
Correct.
They have come back and they have routed the Iraqi army, which was badly trained, with about 30% of the Sunnis deserting immediately. The army collapsed. But let's be very clear. What they control is a portion of northern Iraq with trying to make inroads up to Baghdad. The entire southern Iraq, the entire Kurdish area is not under their control. And even amongst the Sunnis, there are splits between the tribals and this grouping. What you are looking at really is, therefore, this group controlling small areas, including Mosul, which is big. I think even if the Iraqi army can't take them up, the Shia militia will. It will be a bloody civil war in which I believe Western Iraq will remain Sunni dominated, the Kurds will remain where they are, the southern Iraq will become under Shia domination. It's a sad situation. It can only be resolved by a political resolution between all Iraqis, which all of us must try to obtain. No point in going back in history and screaming who did what to.
Analysis. Can I give you a little picture
now I'm
of
short of time.
Arnab.
I'm short of time, and therefore I have to stop. But just one question at the very end. Why can't at least globally there be a consensus? I mean, the ISI, if it poses a threat, why can't we nip it in the bud? Why can't we nip it in the bud?
Go to the UN.
Yes.
Go to the UN, nip it in the bud.
Go to the UN, bring in the Chinese and Russians.
And on that, let all countries, India, Russia, US, all come together. And at least nip this problem in the bud. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This is not recriminatory. I'm not laying the blame on any one floor, but I'm glad at least we've had an open conversation about this tonight. Thank you very much.